So welcome to the Spherity podcast season, Product Passport Pioneers. My name is Susanne Guth-Orlowski and I'm Chief Innovation and Solutions Officer of Spherity. Today we're speaking to Ilias Iakovidis. He's advisor at the European Commission DG Connect. Welcome, Ilias. It's an honor to have you here as a guest and interview partner today.
Oh, nice to be here.
In this season, we're talking about or to the people that have worked in the background to formulate the regulation and those that will have a personal impact on the success on the digital product passport. And this is why I invited you, Ilias, representing the European Commission today, and that has formulated and issued the new regulations about the digital product passport. But Ilias, before we go into all these technical details and into the regulation, tell us a little bit about you. What was your journey to the position that you have today?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Susanne. I'm in the Commission for many years, and I was working mainly for about 20 years on digitizing healthcare. Digitizing healthcare led me to see what I can do digitizing the environment and see the synergies and conflicts between environment and digitalization. And I'm trying to really minimize the conflicts between digital and green transition and maximize the opportunity of synergies. And maximizing synergies means maximizing the power of digital to accelerate transition to circular economy. And circular economy is maybe the biggest thing we can do for climate change. So what can we do using digitalization to enable sustainable business models, digitalization of our markets, so that everybody can have data to help itself, from companies to individuals to organizations and governments, to help this transition. So this is, and I'm learning a lot. I mean, I'm using a lot lessons learned from healthcare. So that's how I got here. This digital and green transition led us to actually, as DG Connect, be involved on the digital product passport in the new regulation that came out last week.
What is actually DG Connect? Is it kind of, I had to look it up. It says Directorat General. I think you have to pronounce it in French.
DG,
Or is it a department, like a department?
It's a general directorate general. Okay, so DGs are the ministries, let's say, of the Commission. So we are the IT ministry, okay, the ministry that regulates telecom. We issued the AI Act, the Data Act, the DSA, the DMA. I don't know if you know all these regulations that our DG is responsible for: Digital Services Act, Digital Market Act, the AI Act, and the Data Act. So we work on data, AI, Internet of Things. So this is the department where the digitalization is happening and where the digital single market regulations are coming out.
Oh, okay, super. Thank you for clarifying that. I think for our listeners that is important to see where this all sits. And your direct responsibility now with regards to the DPP, what's your role there?
So my role is overall, I'm kind of coordinating the green digital transformation, the twin transition. And within the DPP, we are, as DG Connect, and myself as DG Connect, we work with other 3 DGs: DG Grow, that's the internal market; DG Energy, that is in charge of Ecodesign; and DG Environment, that is in charge of the environmental legislations and environmental issues. Those 3 DGs as the core of the new Sustainable Product Initiative. We were brought in to help with the digital product passport.
I see.
So, and I'm the one basically working with the colleagues from those other 3 DGs on this.
Ah, okay. Now, the European Commission has published actually 2 regulations now concerning the digital product passport. The first is obviously the battery regulation that has already been issued last December. And now the circular economy package that has been issued on March 30th. The battery regulation mandates for the first time a digital product passport for batteries over 2 kilowatt hours. And the new circular economy package explicitly mentioned textiles and buildings. How are those regulations going to relate to each other?
Yes, so let's explain a bit, because it's a bit confusing, I'm sure, to those that do not follow the Brussels bubble very closely. So there is something called the Circular Economy Action Plan that was issued in March of 2020. So this is kind of the action plan of what we're gonna do in the coming years on circular economy. And there you can see that there's a big table of things that we have to do. So on Wednesday, we adopted 4 of those things. 4 of those, actions that we promised 2 years ago came out last week. The first was called until recently Sustainable Product Initiative. We want that the products that are sold on European market are sustainable. Now it's actually called Ecodesign for Sustainable Products. Okay, so that's the new name of it. And this Ecodesign for Sustainable Product is kind of maybe the biggest thing of the 4. It aims to have the product sustainable in EU, and it actually introduces it has 3 pillars, this initiative. It forbids the destruction of unsold goods. It enlarges the eco-design as we know it. Those that don't know eco-design, it's already happening for 15 years. We are enlarging the eco-design instead of just looking at energy consumption of products, to look at also the material efficiency, the material goods. So it is now looking both to make sure that we minimize waste, we design it in a way that we use the material correctly. And the third and innovative element is the digital product passport. It introduces that. But as you said, battery regulation already a year and a half ago introduced that concept, but in a kind of stricter sense for batteries. Okay. Now the second one is the strategy on textiles. Basically there in one phrase, you can say we want that the fast fashion is out of fashion. We don't want the fast fashion. We want to make sure that there is a recycling, repair, that we actually minimize the chemical and the kind of sustainable materials in the textile industry. Yeah. The third is the kind of revising the regulation on construction. And that is really big because construction is 50% of resource extraction. It's 40% of EU energy consumption goes to buildings, which means almost like 36% of emissions is from heating and cooling the buildings. So trying to revise so that the sector itself looks at it from a circular point of view, because the building material should be recyclable, it should be kind of repairable if possible, if you can, it should be more durable, and should be possible to remanufacture. Okay, so we actually minimize the waste, because 50% of the waste is related to construction.
I would like to cite from the press release from March 30th. It says the Commission is proposing new rules to make almost all physical products on the EU market more friendly to the environment, circular, energy efficient throughout their entire life cycle. That is kind of a big aim, but it also seems that all goods are targeted at some point, not only textiles, buildings, and batteries.
Right. All, I mean, the first one I said, that is the Ecodesign for Sustainable Products. Textiles will be part of it. So I will have to explain a little bit the construction, the legal construction of that. So, but before that, there is the fourth element in the package of last Wednesday, and that is the, we call it supporting the consumers in their green transition. So it's actually a revision of some directives to ensure that when consumers buy something, they get at the point of sales guarantee of durability, information relevant to the repair, and overall some kind of a claim, that the claims are consistent. So we will actually have a green claims initiative that will come later on. But if anybody wants to claim anything, it has to be substantiated using a standardized method. So that is the fourth one. So let's come back. The biggest one is a sustainable product. That is a framework directive like Ecodesign, so kind of follows the Ecodesign logic, where we say, this is our aim, and now let's take one product category at a time. Now let's see what we will take the first year, but I would suspect that textiles will be among the first. Okay, so we take the textiles, it'll be a delegated act, so a separate legislative act where we call for studies, impact assessment. We start talking to all the textile supply chain and value chain actors to see what we're gonna do about textiles, specifically as eco-design requirements on you producing fashion, okay, and apparels and clothes, and what will be inside the digital product passport. So even the what information is in digital product passport will be designed per product category. So then maybe there will be furniture, and then next steel or construction later on.
How do you select those? I mean, how the different...
We select that. So there is a whole team behind the selection of the eco design. You know, the eco design itself had to select things. So for example, now they're working on electronics. So there is the process that determines which product category is the lowest hanging fruit where we can make the biggest impact.
Okay, and
that comes from the eco design, energy, and now materials. So the impact is changing. Before it was like, where do we save energy? I mean, eco design until today, like has saved like 120 billion euro just eco design by, you know, telling the electrical appliances how to be better in terms of design and consumption. So now we will have to kind of enlarge it. So there's also the material consumption that we have to look at. So there is a whole team in working with JRC and other research departments of the Commission, how to select them.
And did I understand it correctly that the proposal that came out now gives some general requirements about the digital product passport, and then each delegated act is maybe making those more concrete or more fitting to that vertical space?
Yes, so actually the digital product passport, the data, what is in the digital product passport and who can see it will be done in per product category separately. But in order to make sure that we actually have one system across all product categories, we need a horizontal agreement on standards, on identifiers, on access rights management, on kind of maybe even data. When it comes to material, we have to have codes for materials that are across the product categories the same, okay?
Yeah.
So there is the system level of the product passport and interoperability level that has to be common to all product categories. And that is the visible part of the product passport, but that's the engine, that's the system. It's not necessarily the data of a specific product.
Yeah, okay, understood. So maybe we have talked high level about the product passport, the general concept of the product passport. Can you give us an idea of what this should actually bring us?
Yes. Before I do that, I just want to make sure that all three of those four packages that were adopted, I mean, the package and the legislative act that were adopted, they all refer to digital product passport. So the textiles have a very specific pointer to digital product passport and construction as well. So the only category at the moment that we do not talk about digital product passport is food. But they anyway, through another initiative, Farm to Fork, talking about traceability of trace and tracking of food materials. So they will go around it as well. Maybe they will not call it digital product passport. We'll see how it goes.
I see.
So this digital product passport, what it is about, it's basically about tracing and tracking information along the supply chain so that the businesses know where their material comes from, what is in it, and then even more importantly, it follows, once you place the product on the market, it follows the product in order to make sure that there is support for repair, for refurbishment, for recycling, and end-of-life handling. So it actually registers and ensures that there is a sharing of information. But again, very much along those only that can see it. So it's not an open product passport that anybody can go and look at that.
I think that's an important point, which I'm coming to a little bit later. So in the delegated acts, I guess the requirements that you mentioned and the concrete data that is needed is probably defined in detail, right? Because it might be different for each industry, but the general concept, the technical concept should be the same, so that everyone, or especially from the raw materials actors, can serve different value chains, and so that they don't have to serve 10 different systems for 10 different value chains, right?
Exactly, and that's the biggest point, to make people understand, because it's confusing. It's not easy to understand that what will be in the product passport will be designed by those actors, what is in it and who can see what. But the system has to be the same, because imagine SME that is serving some, let's say, textile industry, and it's serving some kind of a plastic bottle industry, and it's serving others. They have to have the same way they identify themselves, and they enter into those product passports in a way how they access it and what information they read and write into, okay? So for them, it has to be one system. That's why we talk about the horizontal part is one. The way you manage, you process, you share information, it has to be the same. Now, what's in it and how you, and who can see it, even the way you authenticate everybody has to be the same. Even the way you authenticate your identification as who you are has to be the same. It cannot vary across the product categories, because you don't want to have, authenticate yourself one way to the textile industry, supply chain product passport, and another one to batteries, another one to furniture, whatever it will be.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, of course, I mean, for us, Spherity, coming as a company in here that is looking into identification, basically digital identification of things and companies and products, that is, of course, something that we look into and try to support to make that interoperable between the different verticals. The European Union is also supporting the implementation of these product passports now. There are several initiatives where research tenders are being issued and other activities to implement or help implementing those concepts in the industry. Can you give us a bit of an overview or insight what activities the EU has kicked off?
Yes, maybe the most immediate and the most visible will be the project that we launched in the Digital Europe program. So there will be a coordination and support action. That means money to bring across 3 value chains, all the stakeholders together to design and to start thinking how a product passport would look like. So that project will kick off around summertime or right after summertime. And we will have a discussion on the first prototype of such things. But since even before we publish, right after the batteries, but even now, there are already research and innovation projects around digitalization of industry and digital for circular economy type of the twin transition. If you go to the Horizon Europe and look at the twin transition topics, many of them already start referring to digital product passports. So there were several already with the deadline like last week, but the topics we're discussing for 23-24 will have even more references to digital product passport to help just the manufacturers, for example, to exchange data. Because remember, digital product passport is to facilitate sharing of information, because you do that already. I mean, there is a lot of sharing across the value chain actors on PDF, signed PDFs, or some kind of emails, or whatever sharing you're doing. We would like that digital product passport facilitates and makes efficiencies in terms of information transfer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should make sure that we don't see it as another fragmentation of reporting, that you can do with capture the data and report on many fronts at the same time. So this diminishing of administrative burden is one of the goals of product passport.
I see. And I think the goal is also to connect the digital product passport technology that's interoperable with the technology that's already there, right? That's already existing in all the companies. So backward
compatibility is a key. I mean, of course, the biggest problem will be the legacy interoperability with the legacy system, and all the new innovations that you know better that will come in with respect to decentralized identifiers, the decentralized world that is kind of championed by the DLTs and the blockchain technology, but it does need to be blockchain. But the new idea of decentralization comes in very heavily. And the momentum of public administrations, it's still struggling with this concept.
Absolutely. And obviously that's why we probably also make this podcast, to give the listener a bit more understanding where the decentralized technology comes in. And for me, one of the most important innovations of the decentralization is not really the blockchain part, but it's the concept of the decentralized identifiers. Yeah, no matter where you anchor the information, but to bring in the concept of self-sovereign identities, be it a self-sovereign human identity or company identity or product identity. And this is obviously what Spherity stands for. And the approach that we see, or the decentralized approach that we see, brings in some benefits in our view. First of all, it makes the data verifiable, so that you know from whom this data comes and that there's no fake news in the product passport. The data sovereignty that I already mentioned, business confidentiality, because it allows you to look after your data yourself, store it yourself, and give access only to those roles and people and companies that you think need the data for their businesses. And also there's no need for a central platform to manage the entire digital product passport. Where do you see here maybe the need for exactly these requirements or for new technologies? What is your expectations that these new technologies can bring to the table and help implementing the digital product passport?
Yes, I mean, this is essential because we already took the decision in the regulation to call for decentralized system. So unlike some other databases in the past that we called like everybody has to send us all the information to a centralized database, we already decided that this will be decentralized. So every actor will keep the data at their side. Now we will see what the small SMEs that do not have a site, how to help them. So we can discuss that later.
Yeah, I think there are also service providers, again, that can facilitate.
There will be cloud as a service. So we are working on, the big projects like Gaia X and Federation of, cloud provisions in Europe to make sure that everybody has access to some kind of a cloud as a service.
That's actually a good point, because Spherity is actually implementation partner of Gaia X. We're implementing the notarization API as reference service at the moment. And we're hoping that, of course, we can take this as a technological basis to also shape product passport technology around this.
Right.
That you see that feasible, that it fits together?
Yes. I mean, that's we see that as one of the possible solutions. We are kind of technology neutral, of course, with the legislation, but already they gave the environment for decentralized system to happen. So we said everybody normally keeps the information at their side, and that's why the identification, because the only thing that will bring the data around the product together virtually is the identifier. And and that's my previous world, if anybody from the listeners understands how the electronic patient records work, will understand what we mean. Because you as a patient, you go to a hospital X one day, then you go to some lab for taking images or blood exams, then you go to GP, then you go to another hospital. So you leave traces. The only thing that links all that information is your patient identification. And the only ones that can really see it are the authorized medical doctors, and not any doctor, a doctor that is actually treating you. So if people know, and those that have been designing this for decades, know that if there is an unauthorized, because there is an audit trail, if anybody comes, even as a doctor, and sees it and cannot justify why he saw that data on you, on your health data, has a severe legal consequences.
Yeah, what a wonderful comparison.
And this is what I want to tell people. This is not a new concept of the decentralized data that is very sensitive. So electronic health records of people that live in different systems, in different hospital systems, different lab systems, different GP systems are linked. Sometimes they are kind of dumped into centralized database in some countries, fine, but ideally they don't need to. And they are accessible only to the authenticated treating physicians. So in a way, there cannot be more sensitive data than that. And I know that companies are very, very kind of, I would say, not afraid, but they, under their big consideration is their trade secrets and IPR. They don't want that to be compromised.
We hear that also in every industry. The business confidentiality is one of the largest requirements and is also probably a hurdle that currently or that has made previous engagements to make the supply chain more visible have failed because of companies don't want to give out their business data. And this is why we think that a decentralized approach where you control the data yourself is something that is convincing and then will also be accepted by the industry. Because if the industry doesn't accept it, it's not going to be successful. Right. But maybe that brings me to another topic. What do you think has to come from the industry or from other parties that make the product passport a success, or where do you see hurdles there?
Right. What will make it success, of course, is the quality of the data and the trust of all the players. But the trust is a result of a process. So trust is that we will need to open up and make sure that the industry jump starts the discussion, that we don't give detailed instructions on the specifications and the standards, everything, that they take it by the horns and they drive the process. So it's really important that market drives the process. And that is what we as DG Connect were always telling all the partners within the Commission, saying we should not micromanage this one. The biggest, the pillar on which the digital product passport will stand is the B2B transactions. So if the B2B are not there to support, business opportunity, to support less administrative burden, to support my claim as a green and sustainable company, I need to have data about my claims, because the greenwashing era is over. So we know that in order to say that I am a sustainable company, I need to prove it. So I will push my supply chain to give me the best quality data I can. So I have that need. So product passport could be the vehicle. So it will take years until the data is of quality, verifiable and good quality. We know that from automotive sector. That took they have this big database. And I think the first 5 years, they just ignored it, because it takes about 5 years until everybody knows what is meant to be put in there. So there will be some kind of incomplete sheets, but we need to start. And we cannot design for perfect system to start on Thursday, and now everybody presses a button. It will be evolution. And so I see as a kind of target that the first few years will go through very incomplete data, but slowly, based on incentives and value of this data, it will get more complete, and maybe in areas that we never dreamed of, because the B2B is important, but B2C is equally important. Because if you really want to claim a product as a green and sustainable, you want to communicate that.
Of course. I talked with Thorsten Freund already from the Global Battery Alliance. So the Global Battery Alliance could be one of those industry consortia, right, to agree on standards, to agree on the semantics of certain data, on taxonomies, so that everyone understands what is meant by a certain data in the product passport. Am I understanding you right, that you say we actually need such consortia for every vertical that you regulate?
Right. So remember the framework regulation we adopted will lead to kind of delegated acts. That means special legal measures. That means we will call and say, all the guys of textiles, come in. We have a public consultation, coming together. We will try to create some kind of a discussion, what needs to happen. So yes, on batteries, it's already happened. It's happening. And on textiles, it will happen. On construction, it will happen. So yes. And what I want to say, if you say what is important for industry, to even go beyond. I'm working with a lot of industries in something called European Green Digital Coalition. What I notice is that industries are more bold, and they are sometimes even, they go beyond the governmental wishes or commitments, you see. So I would say the same thing needs to happen with digital product passport. Let them drive it, let them see the value of this, and hopefully then even drive the standardization process, because we'll need some more standards on this issue. So we will issue standardization mandates if needed. But if the market fails, and if we cannot, we have a safety valve that if there is no agreement at the end, we as a commission will need to come in and prescribe, how the system works. But I hope that the market sees the value and already drives it.
Yeah, speaking of the value and the benefits, what other benefits do you see for the companies, for the actors in the value chain, apart from being regulation compliant then after they've implemented the product passport?
I mean, that should be one of them only. So the value, let's put it again from the beginning. Every company that I talk to wants to show that, that they are sustainable, but it's not just to greenwash, because they know there is no future without sustainable business model, without them being sustainable company. They know that they will not last for long. I mean, because not only because of our regulation, because of a real necessity and reality, only the sustainable companies with sustainable business models will survive to the future. So for them to do that, they see, okay, so how do I survive? How do I make it to be more sustainable? They need a situational awareness. What is happening with the material I'm using, the resources I'm using, and what happens to my products? So this situational awareness needs data. Okay, because I need to know, where do I get it from, and where is my product going? Because an example of kind of a more sustainable model is a circular model, is this product as a service. I keep owning the product. So I need to have situational awareness, where it is, in what state, what kind of health status, that means performance level it has. When do I call it back? When do I refurbish? What do I do to help the repairability of it? So all that needs a lot of information. And so we should see the digital product passport as the enabling mechanism for this bigger picture. How do I move to a circular business model so I have a future brighter as a company? So that's for companies. For consumers, for citizens, everybody wants to have a health, not everybody, but majority of us want to take this green journey, because we know that it's for our kids. We are stronger in this one. So that's another comparison with healthcare. When it comes to healthcare, it's about me drinking and smoking. It's my health. I do what I want. The green transition is about my kids. I could actually do more than what I do for my health. Okay, so we do want to be, but we don't know what to do. And sometimes, when people want to confuse us, there is, confusion is big, and misinformation can be big. So to get trusted information, what is this product doing compared to another product, is very important to consumers. In which way we support them in their green journey. So imagine tomorrow browsing maybe online, buying something next to a price to have also the footprint. For that you need precise data.
That would be wonderful.
It's not average data from some tables, average coffee machine. It's that coffee machine.
And interesting, because I was thinking that if we have this digital product passport and we have all the information in it, also the CO2 footprint, do you think it's possible to serve as a basis for a CO2 tax?
You cross the taboo line. Yes, of course. I mean, let's have that another discussion. Yes, definitely yes. I mean, the only way you can really start valuing natural resource, if you can estimate it exactly, using the same methodology and using data that is trusted, what is really in this. And then you can start looking at, how to make sustainable products more competitive. Let's put it that way. The sustainable product should be cheaper.
Absolutely, yeah. Should be more attractive. Should be cheaper.
I mean, we don't expect that because we're talking about fair transition. We cannot expect that people will recognize and buy more expensive product because they are greener.
Yeah.
No, the greener products have to be, we have to make them cheaper. And sustainability, kind of efficiency gains through product passport is one thing, but other thing is to make sure the alternatives also to be correctly valued.
Yeah. So now we are at the timeline already a little bit. Where do you think the product passport stands in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? How do you see the timeline?
2 years will be really start to grasp the full scope of it, because it's a huge beast. People maybe naively think about it as easy thing, but it's huge. So it's one of those big innovations that we kind of putting forward. So in 2 years, we will be grasping the bigger picture of it and understanding where we need to move. 5 years from now, very few product categories will start having incomplete sheet exchanges, very incomplete. In 10 years, I hope that few of them will have it complete and many of them will have it already kind of, the incomplete things will happen. It'll become standard in 10 years. The big issue is the other jurisdictions outside of Europe. We need to make the whole world to come on board. This is not only that can work within EU, because supply chains are outside. So to what degree you get out of EU, companies play game and start putting data in such a thing, it's what we need. There is a lot of diplomacy and a lot of B2B opportunities that have to happen. And
but isn't it the way then that if you want to sell products to the European Union, that they should come with the product passport on board?
Yes, but if it's not done by the supply chains there, then whoever is importing the product will have to do it. So we hope that it's a cascade effect. If a company wants to sell something in Europe, the company needs to be green. They normally, it's in their interest to push the supply chain to give that data. Okay, so that we hope to kind of resonate on incentives already of the business to be greener and to be sustainable.
Wonderful. I think we've come to an end of the interview. Ilias, do you want to give us a final statement about your idea of the product passport, its importance, anything that you want to leave to the listener, your very most important sentence?
No, we said everything. So I think my important thing is that to jumpstart the government regulations to the market, to jumpstart, embrace it, and run and see how it can really help their transition to sustainability, how to help consumers, and of course, at the end, also how to make the reporting easier to the governments and market authorities.
Super. Thank you so much, Ilias. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for sharing all the insights about what you're doing at the European Commission. So thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Bye-bye.